Dang, Sir Topham Hatt is really spending some money. Our two new engines introduced to Sodor are Donald and Douglas from Scotland. Except Top Hat was only expecting one engine to come. Well, this is what happens when you create a replica of the same model. Someone was bound to get confused, but hey, if Top Hat got two for the price of one, he shouldn't be grumbling.
The twins meant well, but did cause confusion. The Fat Controller had given them numbers, Donald 9 and Douglas 10, but he was still planning to send one engine home.
Yes, we'll see how well those numbers make things easy. And check out that theme for Donald and Douglas. This is one of the few times we'll hear something other than true synthesizers. This motif especially includes the bagpipes to help distinguish these two new characters from everyone else. It's better than their numbers when it comes to identification, in all honesty. As they got settled with work, things were already getting tied up. A brake van in the yard decided to make things hard for Douglas. Every time he had to use it, he ended up late, which got him in trouble. Donald, on the other hand, wasn't having any of that crap.
It's to leave you behind I'd be wanting. You can't, said the van. I'm essential. Spot Dougie, would you? Take that! Oh! Cried the van.
Essential enough to be battered? Yeah, I think so. I'm all in on what Donald has to say. It's also nice to see that Donald cares enough about his twin to back him up when he needs it. I just find it odd that if Douglas was late because of the van, why nobody believed him? What, is he just supposed to work through it and still get there on time? From what's been shown before, these trucks aren't always easy to convince. And now, of course, we have a brake van who adds to the frustration. Donald shouldn't be the only one who believes this. After being biffed around, the van was much more compliant. But that didn't stop Donald from having his own troubles.
The rails were slippery. He couldn't stop in time. The Fat Controller was most annoyed.
Now, I'm sure that model building was only made of light materials, but the crash effects really made it sound like it was made of brick and mortar. But here's what I don't get. Top Hat clearly states to Donald that he was planning on sending Douglas back, but now that Donald needed repairs, that wasn't going to happen. So did Donald have his accident because the rails were slippery, or was it really just so his twin wouldn't be sent back to Scotland? If Donald really couldn't stop in time, then Top Hat should only be annoyed with the fact that his plans won't work out. But it sounds more like he's annoyed more with Donald. These accidents are great lawyer cases, I'll say that much. I can't figure out who's at fault. The one who was bothered more by this bind was James, who is now ordered to help with Donald's goods train.
Anyone would think, said Douglas, that Donald had his accident on purpose. I heard tell about an engine and some tar wagons. Shut up, said James. It's not funny.
I'm not shocked anymore. Donald and Douglas having knowledge of engines' previous crashes is something that's very common on Sodor now. Sure, let's just kick James while he's already disgruntled. I see Gordon's eyes haven't been corrected yet. Look at that derp face. With James more livid than ever, things only got worse while taking a train with troublesome trucks and that bitter brake van. Douglas, who was at Wellsworth Station, saw the trouble James was having and agreed to help James out. I'm just glad James didn't hold a grudge to Douglas for referencing his dirty objects accident when he arrived. At first, while making it up Gordon's Hill, there seemed to be no problem. Note the key phrase, at first. Only because James began to lose his strength.
I can't do it! I can't do it! Lay it to me! Shouted Douglas. The guard was anxious. Go steady! The van's breaking! The van was in pieces.
Ew, that's quite gruesome. The van literally just crunched under Douglas. Not that anyone should care too much. That brake van was no good anyway. Soon, Edward brought up the breakdown train along with Top Hat. Having seen enough of the twins within the last number of hours for every incident imaginable, Top Hat really couldn't figure out how to feel about them. Edward lent his trustworthy words in support of them, but even that couldn't clear the muddy water for him.
I want to be fair, Douglas, but I don't know. I really don't know. The Fat Controller was making up his mind about something, but that's another story.
Of course, but at least this story doesn't involve Henry for once when it comes to this multi-part story. This episode was interesting, to say the least. Donald and Douglas are a likable pair of twin engines, but it's weird how upon their arrival they've had nothing but mishap after mishap. I'm sure they meant well, but it's like nothing was in their favor. Donald tries to fix Douglas's issue to only have his own hazard, to then have Douglas fill in, only to cause more of a calamity. And yet somehow Top Hat finds it to be both their faults, even though he's taking into account they weren't malicious in their actions. These two are also the next set of characters introduced that have different sounding voices executed by Ringo Starr. Aside from Harold, who didn't need his own voice really, I can see why Ringo Starr gave Donald and Douglas their accents. If it was never mentioned that they were from Scotland, perhaps Ringo Starr never would have changed his narration. And although Starr isn't from Scotland, his performance is fine. Music was good too in this entry. We get to hear the Twins theme, but only at the beginning. Hopefully we'll hear more of it again. James's motif is also heard, considering it includes him as a supporting character. The sets have variety too. Stations like Wellsworth and the Tidmouth Goods Station are regular stops. Sudbury Castle is also seen when James takes his trucks to Wellsworth Station. I love the greenery that's included in that shot. And of course, Gordon's Hill is a great shot too. Even better is that when the camera focuses in on Douglas, we get a better idea of the incline they're on. I still like the fact that we can also see the island sound further out in the background. It's gorgeous. Next episode is The Deputation. Thanks for watching.